Hey everyone, this is Body Pal with the Android Anthem, and today I'm going to take you on a hardware tour of the Galaxy S5 from Samsung. This is Verizon's version with 4G, of course. Gotta have their big old logos on the back. Looking at the hardware here of the Samsung Galaxy S5, it's a little bit bigger than last year's device. We're running at about 5.6 inches from top to bottom, 2.8 inches from left to right, and 0.31 inches right across the middle here, the width. It's not much fatter than last year's device. Here's the Galaxy S4 right here beside it, and you can tell that they're pretty close to about the same width, thickness, pretty close to the same thickness, that is. The width, that's about the same size too. It's a hair wider. Right there, just a hair wider. But it's definitely taller. But instead of a 5-inch screen, it's got a 5.1-inch screen. And extra thickness, height, width. It comes because the Galaxy S5 is waterproof. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It is certified to be sweat, rain, liquid, sand, and dust proof. Certified being the key word there. Inside the battery compartment, you have these extra seals, rubber seals. They go around the interior here. They surround the battery. They surround the SIM card tray. They surround right below the camera. Not exactly sure how they keep that completely sealed, but they do. So that's how they keep it watertight. Put that back on, and because of the water seal certification, the warranty does take that into account. Also, it gives you a warning after you take the back off and put it back on. It gives you a warning here on your phone that says make sure that all of it is snapped back together in order to keep it watertight. So let's talk about the screen for a little bit. 5.1-inch screen, as we said before. It is a 1080 by 1920 Full HD Super AMOLED display. That is the best screen Samsung has. I think that's pretty much what they've been putting in all their phones. Now, it's the Gorilla Glass 3, which is Gorilla's latest, toughest, strongest, scratch-resistant display and glass for the display, that is. Putting it in your pocket shouldn't be a problem. With your keys, should keep it nice and clean. Now, I'm not going to do any type of scratch tests or anything. This isn't my phone. It's a demo unit. In the back, you got a 16 megapixel camera. On the front, you got a 2 megapixel camera. This puppy comes with 16 gigabytes of storage or 32 gigabytes of storage, a quad-core processor, and 2 gigabytes of RAM, so it should have no problem whatsoever running those applications. Anything you download or throw at it, games, high-definition games, videos, it should be able to run them all with no problem and no hiccups. Across the top, you've got a headphone jack. You've also got a microphone right here. See if we can get that into frame. And an IR blaster right beside the microphone. On the left-hand side, you've got your volume rocker, volume down, volume up. On the right, you have your power button right there. Across the bottom, it gets interesting. What is that little flap doing right there? Well, that is the waterproof seal for the USB 3.0 micro USB plug. There you go. There's your water seals right there on the flap. Now, you may be asking, that does not look normal. Well, let me show you the difference. Your typical Android devices have a USB 2.0 plug. This is what your normal adapter would look like on all your other phones. And this is a USB 3.0 plug. Notice the little port added there to the side. Side by side, there's your difference. Now, the right-hand side of the 3.0 looks exactly the same as the 2.0 by itself. The additional port here on the 3.0 helps you transfer data faster with your computer. It also helps to charge the phone faster. Let's put that in the little plug here and show you how that works. Just like that. So, Samsung did things a little bit different here. Not to be surprised, they like to do proprietary changes. I'd like to make a note that this little flap here is a bit of an annoyance, a nuisance, if you will. You see, you have to get it just right in order to seal it right back up. Let's see if we can get it to focus again here. Sorry. There we go. So you can pull it out and open it. It's definitely a two-handed job. It is not a one-handed job. If you're driving down the road and you need to charge your phone, you need to let your passenger plug it in, because opening that port, plugging it in, getting that out of the way while you're doing so is not a one-handed job. The nuisance comes in because of that little part that's holding the flap on right there in the middle, right there. Because that, you can't just push it in. You can see how I can't just, I have to first push that end in and then the opposite end to get it to seal properly. So, keep that in mind. If you're thinking about the Galaxy S5, you're going to have a little bit of a challenge trying to charge it. Now, take a look at the back. Last year's back had a smoother, more of a flat finish, if you will, but you can tell all these fingerprints that I'm putting on here. You can see all those fingerprints. Well, this year's back is more of a matte finish. It's definitely not a fingerprint magnet. You can't see any fingerprints. You got dimples. You see the little dimples across the screen. And it's a little bit more slippery when you try to hold it in one hand. It slides a bit more. If say your hands are cold in the morning or anything like that, you're trying to hold it one-handed. If you don't, you got to kind of put your pinky underneath to keep it from falling straight down. Unless your hands are, I don't know, warm or moist, then you get a grip. But if they're not, then it's going to slip right out. Whereas last year's, you didn't have a problem with that at all, no matter what temperature your hands were. Although it was a fingerprint magnet, it was easier to hold. Also, being that it's a bit taller and you like to use it one-handed, you're going to see that you can't really quite reach the top of that screen to get that notification bar. Let's also talk about a little bit more on the back. You'll see here that the LED flash for the camera has something right here beside it. I can't quite get it on film, but that is a heart rate monitor. We'll talk about it more when we get into the software, but the point is to start the app, press the start button, hold your finger ever so slightly over that heart rate monitor. It'll glow red, and it'll tell you to stand still, it'll tell you to not move, it'll tell you to be quiet, and it will measure your beats per minute. It's pretty accurate, but it's just as accurate as any of the other applications on the Play Store that use the camera sensor on your other devices. Hint, hint. So, let's talk about the front for a minute. You'll notice that we've got your regular home button that Samsung is, I'm not going to say is iPhone-ish because that's a bit cliche, but they put it on all their phones now. The home button, S4, S5 home button. But what you need to pay attention to is the capacitive buttons on the side. On this side you have a recent apps button. On this side you have a back button. Trying to get that to focus for you. Here you are. On the S4 from last year, you had a menu button on the left side and a back button on the right side. Though the back button's the same, the home button's the same. The menu button is what has changed. So, how do you access the menus on the Galaxy S5? Let me show you. If you open up an application such as Google Chrome, sorry, I'll get rid of that real quick. Let's go to a web page. Let's go to the Android Anthem. And if you press and hold the recent apps, boom, up pops your menu. Not to be mistaken with that menu button, which you can also access, but long press, recent apps, Oh, I'm selecting, sorry. Long press. There's your menu. And to show you how it works, the menu, recent apps button works that way. If you notice, there's a little bit of lag, but we'll talk about that later. Boom. Touch it on 3. 1, 2, 3. And there's a lag. We'll talk about that one later. On the front, you'll notice the beautiful display. The 1080p. So nice. Now the phone itself weighs it's rated at to 5.11 ounces. And I looked it up, and that's about the weight of a deck of cards. And yeah, they weigh about the same. Compared to last year's Galaxy S4, yeah, those weigh about the same too. But what we haven't talked about yet is the battery. Last year in the Galaxy S4, you had a 2600 milliamp hour battery. In this year's version, you have a 2800 milliamp hour battery. They say that it's rated to last you 27 hours of regular to light use and 20 days on standby. Now, I don't believe I'll ever get that kind of timing out of my battery because I'm not a regular to light user. However, it's good to know that 27 hours is an option, I guess. That's pretty much it for the hardware tour. I appreciate you guys coming and visiting. I'll let you know all about my review in a couple of days when it finally lands. And if you like the video, hit the thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks. Come back to see me.